What's up, guys? Welcome back to another exciting podcast edition of National HSFB, or better known as National High School Football. I'm your host, Larry Godwin. My counterpart in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, maybe your left, is Joe Mamone from Prep Gridiron Logistics. You guys know the story by now. We make a habit, Joe, of going virtually across the entire country, interviewing the most prominent high school football coaches in America. And tonight is no different. Guys, we have the head coach for the Buford Wolves. Now, if you keep in touch or keep track of the national high school football scene, Buford needs no introduction, and Coach Appling needs no introduction. So, Coach, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Joe, why don't you kick us off?
Larry, the Buford program is very important to me. You know, when we started this company, we started about 8 years ago. We were booking games, and then we got into booking events. And the first event we ever promoted, ever as a company, was at Buford. Their facilities are tremendous there. Yeah. It's great for a multi-game high school football event. We brought Bergen Catholic down to play Grayson in game one, and then the main event, we had Deerfield Beach play Buford. So I'll always be indebted to the program and the coach and the ADs there for, you know, helping us kick off our company with the event on the event side. Because since that event, we're doing 3-4 years now. So that was the start. So love Coach App and the whole program and what they bring to our sport. Coach, first question is, it's amazing. I made a diagram of since you got to Buford, year, rank in Georgia, rank nationally. When you first started, the season before you started, Buford was about, again, there's a lot of polls, but I use Cal Preps for this situation, for these type of situations. So according to Cal Preps, 2018, 27th in the state of Georgia, 341 in the nationally in America. Then you start in the last 4 years. Let's go 2019, 5th in Georgia, 63rd in America. 2020. Second in Georgia, 43rd in America. 2021, 4th in Georgia, 29th in America. You guys see the pattern here? 2022, 4th in Georgia, 32nd in nationally. So, and again, over those years, 5A, 6A, 7A. So my question to you is, we've never interviewed a coach who's, you know, I don't think had this success in the first 4 years. What do you attribute the success to?
I would say, consistently, I've been at Buford 21 years, going on 21 years now. And the support and the effort from the people in the town is tremendous. The kids work their tail off, they're blue collar, type kids. And I always tell people, we've got a lot of stars. We've got a lot of great players. I always had some great players, but the glue of this place is really the kids that, the O linemen, D linemen that don't get the name called every play. The special teams guys that are just, itching and scratching for 3.5 years just to get a chance on a Friday night and region play or in the playoffs. We're built on people like that and kids like that. And that's throughout the whole community, throughout the whole administration. There's people behind the scenes doing the little things they're supposed to do to support me and support my staff and support this team that just do a consistently great job of the little things exactly right for us to have a chance to be special each and every fall.
Coach, speaking of consistency, I was kind of talking to Joe about giving him a little bit of history of Buford and Georgia high school football. And I told him this staggering stat. Buford's last losing season was 1998. There was a few, I just did the numbers real fast, and that was a little bit before your time, I believe, there at Buford. Now, 1998, Joe couldn't believe me when I told him this. 1998, Buford was a single A football program. And then over the years, because of the growth of the metro Atlanta area, quickly rose up to, we basically went through all the classifications, and now you're the highest classification. So there is if you go back and look at the history of Buford football, you guys have won championships in every classification in the state except 7A yet, and that may be coming. We just don't know the future. That may be coming. my question for you is there a Buford way? And if there's not, how would you describe the mentality of Buford football, given that the consistency that we've seen?
Yeah, you hear people coin that phrase a lot around here and a lot of, surrounding areas, the Buford Way. And that's changed. Obviously, as you grow and as you go up against different talent each and every Friday and get bigger and bigger as a town and bigger as a school, it's harder to keep that small town blue collar mentality. It's different when you have 650 kids in high school trying to get them to act a certain way. And now in this day and age with after COVID, all the differences in social media and stuff like that and the trials and tribulations of this time, it's harder to get kids to do it. But there is a Buford way as far as doing the little things exactly right. And, we say not nearly right, exactly right. And we're the same way in the on the football field, in the weight room, classroom, the hallways. We're trying to get our kids to be different. We have different rules at our school that a lot of schools in the area don't have. We don't have any cell phones during classes, during class change or lunch. And I think it makes the kids, lock into what they're doing each and every day. And that goes, it goes all the way up to the top as far as administration as well. We try to meet our kids where they are, and give them the support that they need. Tutoring sessions set up throughout the week and things like that. But the Buford Way has evolved, but there is a definite difference when a college recruiter steps into the hallways. He always says, "Coach, this is different, man. I'm in the cafeteria and I ain't seen one carrot fly across my head, or kids aren't up going crazy and playing around and joking around and stuff like that. Our kids sit down, they know how to act, they know how to respect adults." And, obviously they're kids, they're going to make mistakes and they're going to do silly things. But, I do believe our way of going about everyday business is different. It's my job as a head coach in my program and as a leader in the building to police the kids and hold them accountable. Yeah. We're a high level. There's a high level of accountability in our school and in our program as far as telling kids the truth. You know what I mean? I don't want to, dash into kids' dreams, but they need to understand, like, hey, this is what we see you as. This is where you need to do. This is what you need to be doing on an everyday basis. Have a chance to help us out, and also have a chance to be a great person one day. You know what I mean? If you're not doing that right, I'm gonna help guide you to that person you need to be. But at some point, you gotta make that decision. This is why we're gonna do it, and you're gonna listen to the Buford Way. You're gonna try to embody that in everything you do, 24/7. Because if you can't, you're gonna stick out. And that's the different part about our school, not just a football program. If you don't do the things the right way, you stick out. And that peer pressure kind of takes care of itself. And a lot of people want to blame different things on why they don't want to play anymore for us, or they don't want to be a part of what we do anymore. But it's not hard to tell, when that conversation is coming, or you have to tell a kid, hey, man, I love you, but you got to find something else to do. And we don't hardly do that, but it's part of the deal. I lose kids every year because it's too hard, or because of whatever reason. I don't want to lose them. I hate it every time I have that conversation, but there's a certain way we do things. And if you don't do it that way around here, you do stick out.
Hey, Coach, I'm going to mention some names to you. Former players at Buford that have gone on to do great things in the sport. Vidal Alexander, the Fergusons, Storm Johnson, Isaac Nada, the Sams, Darius Walker, Tim Wansley. When I mention any of those names, did anything stick out to you? That's the first question about any of them. And number two, are all those people still close to the program? Do they come by? Do they inspire your current athletes? Are they still, do they still have Buford Green in their heart?
Oh, definitely. They do. And it's crazy because I can think of a story of most of those kids. I coached all of them except for, Darius and Sam's, but I know them all. And I have a relationship with them all. That's a cool thing because they still come around and they bleed green, and they show up on the sideline once or twice every fall, and they're out there cheering them on and halfway in the huddle just like they're still playing. You know what I mean? It's just they do believe the fact that they want this place to be great, better than they can. We do have a saying around here: you leave it better than you found it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just you want to pour back into the following generations of people that did what you did. And the cool thing about it is a lot of those, I would say 70% of those names you just said have come back and poured into our kids 2 years ago. And we noticed it during COVID. You get to what? It was late March, right before spring break. And we think, hey, you're going to take 2 weeks off and, we'll be back and everything. That turns into, 2 months of quarantine. And when we come back, you got some great players that we know that were great kids and had great grades and can behave and everything. They go into 2 months of nothing. And when we come back out, they can't pull themselves out of that funk. And we noticed it, there's a disconnect between December, whatever that last game was, to graduation. You look at the kid in the face and have a conversation with him like he just ain't showing him on time like he did with us. He's not doing the little things. So Coach Davis, our recruiting coordinator, running backs coach, me and him had an idea, and it's really his brainchild, but I kind of just jumped in and made suggestions along with Coach Snell, our cornerbacks coach, who's our FCA director for the school. We put together a Connect Now program. We call it Connecting to our seniors. 5 meetings in the spring when we don't see them anymore in the weight room to just keep the ball rolling as far as the things we poured into them over 4 years. And we got Sam's, Isaac Nada, Ryan Reed. We got a bunch of kids that played for us over the years that come back and speak. Actually, the Fergusons, they're supposed to come back late June and do the same thing. You know what I mean? So they're since before season starts for them, we're trying to get them back in the house and say something during the summer because that's a good time for them to come through. Former coaches' kids, Caleb Howard, Jake Simpson. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Every kid we can find that's either continue to play after high school, or they went to college in the NFL, or just college. Business leaders, real estate guys, just trying to find different ways to connect these kids with people that did what they're about to do not too long ago. Because I can speak to them blue in the face. Coach Davis can speak to these blue in the face. But that program has really bridged the gap between December and graduation. And when I got guys like Isaiah Bond and Jake Pope and guys that are high profile players, that how it is. They become seniors. Your voice comes stale to them at some time. They still respect you and they say yes, sir. But it's hard. Just like them living with their parents until they're 18. At some point, right, 16, 17, I say they start smelling themselves and they start trying to, do their own thing and figure out stuff on their own. Even though I've lived this life trying to give you good advice, but they come back to me and say, Coach, this is the best thing y'all ever done. It's like I'm talking to a guy that had a small stint in the NFL, and he played at Nebraska. He played at Miami, or and they're giving me advice and they're eating it up and they're telling me, Coach, this is great. This is stuff that I wish we would have done earlier, kind of deal. So that way our former players always have a chance to come back, and it feels like they're part of the program again, because they'll come speak to us on one night, and then I see them at a baseball game 2 weeks later, and they're like, Coach, man, I'm just happy to be around. I'm so glad y'all invited us back to speak to these guys. It was a blessing, and it was a great deal. So I just think those that's a way that we brought those guys back into the program. Not even the fact of how many stars they had or how many offers they had. It's the fact of, hey, man, they represented us in a special way, and they're just going to give you a bit of advice. And our kids have eaten that stuff up, and I think it's made a serious difference. I got one kid that walked on at a school, and he wanted to go into real estate. And one of the guys in real estate, so he jumped on. He exchanged numbers. He actually did an internship with the guy last summer, and he's like, Coach, I know exactly what I want to do because I interned with him, and he taught me the ropes, and I'm following his advice. I talk to him once a month. Those things are special to us, and that's how those guys are pouring back into the program.
That's great.
Coach, let me ask you a follow-up question on that. You were talking about sometimes kids get older and they're 18 years old, their last season, that kind of stuff. Listen, it's no secret that Buford has really, really good players, right? And some of the best in the country. So they know they're good. How do you keep them grounded? Because they're going up week after week, probably against some of the best players in the country. So how do you keep them grounded?
Yeah, it's a task each and every day, and when they're young and they're trying to get to the status of a high profile recruit or a high profile player on our team, they're eating up everything. You know what I mean? They're taking everything in. They're trying to embody it and bring it out on the field and in daily life. Um, you know, the big deal is having a connection between me and the parent and having us on the same page. I have parent meetings and I try as hard as I can to combat these things if I see them brewing beforehand, before they become an issue. But as long as we're on the same page and we're trying to say the same thing, it usually comes off pretty good with the kid and they stay grounded. But in the end, when you have trainers, you have media, not to throw you guys in.
That's right.
I'm not like that.
It is what it is, Coach.
Yeah, but when they're telling them all the time, you're the best thing since this, and coach don't know what he's doing. He should be using you like this, and you know what I mean. It does make it hard on us, but those guys do understand we love them. They understand that and I tell the parents all the time, I was like, you have 1 or 2 babies in my program, I got 160, and I got to treat every last one of them as equally as I can. It's not always going to be perfect because we got to put a good product out on the field. So just because you believe your son deserves just as many snaps as this guy doesn't mean we see all that huddle film the same way. Because I promise you, we're watching way more than you are. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But keeping it a family atmosphere, keeping them understanding like the name on the front of your jersey is more important than the name on your back of your jersey. And honestly, if we win football games and we keep finding ways to play, 12, 13, 14, 15 games a year, everybody's going to have a chance to eat. You know what I mean? Everybody's going to have a chance to have a seat at the table and get what they want to get. And I always tell them, I was like, the more you pour into Buford football, it'll pour back into your life. Now, I can't guarantee that's as a junior and you got 30 offers and 4 stars by your name. I can't guarantee if it's a senior in college and you're having a chance to play at a good program that you fought through. It might be when you're 35 and you got 2 kids and your wife's on your tail and you're tough enough to deal with what you got to deal with on a daily basis. But it'll reward you and it'll get you there. You just got to listen to me and fight through the situations that are hard and stay humble. Stay with that workmanship mentality each and every day and everything you do, and you'll find a way to be a special person in this society. That's all I'm worried about with my kids. I tell them all the time, like, I'm worried about the type of man, the type of father, the type of citizen you're going to be at 35 years old. If I can get that, and you can come back and with your kids running around my sideline, tearing up a water station when I'm an old man, just creeping around the sideline. I feel like I did a good job for you and your family and this program.
Yeah, that's the job of that's the goal of all of us as dads and coaches. So, Coach, this is the favorite time of the show for me. We get to talk about out-of-state games. As you know, Gridiron Logistics is the #1 promoter of high school football games in America, and you've been a client since around 2018. You schedule a lot of really good out-of-state games, and I know it makes you a better team. If you just look at some of the games, 2018, you were part of that Georgia versus a USA event where you hosted Deerfield Beach. The following year, you allowed me to bring in Chaminade Madonna, who came down and played a great game against you. Those kids that you played at that year were sophomores, so they're seniors this year, Coach.
Oh yeah,
they're going to be top 5. I'm working on my top 25 poll. It's coming out June 27th. They're going to be a top 5-ish Sixers team because those sophomores are now seniors.
Because what I love most about them is the amount of respect they brought into our stadium. For us, we obviously respected them. And I told the coach, I was just happy we scheduled them because they're not your regular, I guess they say smaller school.
They're tiny. They're like, they'd be like that. What Georgia has, like, what do they call a public A or something like that? What Park Avenue Christian is, whatever that.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a tiny school.
Well, I'm telling you, they picked up after themselves. They ran their program great, and I told Coach, I'm so happy I played you because it woke my kids up. You know what I mean? Yeah. They look at them and think that it's going to be easy, but they rolled in that stadium. They understood, but it was too late then. the race was done.
That was such a great game. 7-0. Larry, it was 7-0 final. What a great
that was a fun game to watch.
And then last year at the Freedom Bowl, just really beat up Thompson. Thompson's coming in as the number 1 team in Alabama in the Freedom Bowl. We had it as like the main event, and the game was basically over at halftime. You took care of business with Thompson, and then they go on and win their state. So, that's what we talk about with these out-of-state games. There's nothing wrong with losing early on to a really, really great team, because they'll expose some areas where you need to adjust. Then once you adjust, you can very easily win your state. You also beat Mallard Creek last year. You got them again this year. And then the mothers of all games, this is probably one of the top 5 games in America this year. I'll be there. I'm coming down the weekend of August 18th. You're going to be hosting St. Francis on Friday night. And then that night after your game, I'm driving about halfway down to Macon. I'm going to get in a cheap hotel. And then the following day, I have the Carolina, Georgia challenge, where we're going to have Lowndes and Colquitt playing Dutch Fork and Christ School from North Carolina. So tell us more. Tell us about your how these games impact you. Why you do them and why you're going to continue to do them.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, honestly. You hit the nail on the head, honestly, about playing out-of-state games. There's zero wrong with, playing a tough team and losing a close game. And I mean, even getting your butt handed to you, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, and some of these games that we won these, I've probably been better off if we lost. Like, I don't think we won a state championship 2 years ago if we beat Chaminade. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
We suffered losses. Even the 2 years, the other 2 losses in my first 3 years were to was Clark Central and North Cobb, and those are great programs, and they woke us up. So I joke, my brother coaches baseball at Parkview, and I joke around with him all the time. I mean, I was like, a loss, there's nothing wrong with that, man. You'd rather have it earlier than later because it helps you, grow. It helps you grind. But we just, after, Chaminade especially, it just reiterated the fact. I was like, I'm going to schedule whoever I can schedule early and get some good games in our pocket and go from there. But I love the fact that, working with you guys and getting these highly respected programs in here. We don't deal with a bunch of riffraff, YouTubers and filmers all over the place and trash after they come in. They respect we respect each other. We compete, and then we cheer for each other the rest of the season going forward. But,
yeah. And Coach, have you done your homework yet? Have you started checking out Michael Van Buren and the rest of the St. Francis Academy Panthers?
Yeah, we because it's crazy nowadays. These kids know each other. Everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
707 circuit. So when I said it, I had 2 or 3 guys. Oh yeah, we play 707 against them, or he's on my team. And they play on these national teams now. They fly all over the place and play 707 all weekend and come right back. But some of them know some kids on the team. They definitely. I know they run a tight ship up there, and they always have a great team with great players, and even the fact that just have great players, I think he's running it the right way and has kids believing in the way of doing things, and that's why they put kids out and play a bunch of kids out each year to play college football, and not just on teams they're playing, because of how he coaches them up. But we've gathered a bunch of information on the kids and the coaching staff. We hadn't had a chance to gather a whole bunch of film yet, but we're working on that. We're still in the this time of year for us, we're still in the kind of like that late spring mode. We got some 707s going on this week. We got a paddock camp going on next week, and before the 4th of July week, and then after 4th of July, we really kind of start getting the game planning, installing things that'll help us out in the first 3 or 4 games, instead of just the base stuff that we always use. But I know it's going to be a big time game on that first Friday night of real ball in August, and our kids are going to be ready to go, and we're just going to have fun, man. We're going to have fun competing against some great players in a great program, and love each other in the process, and shake hands with each other, win or loss, and just hopefully it makes us better in the long run.
Yeah, and Coach, that game, Larry, as you know, PGL and Flow Sports have a 4-year agreement to grow the game of high school football at the most elite levels. And that game kicks off our 2023 high school football broadcast season.
That's going to be a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Coach, you alluded to this, but Georgia has got some really, really good football. And we've talked about the Buford Way, the history of winning at Buford. When I talk to fans across the state and you mention Buford, sometimes it's accepted as just a given that Buford is going to win another state championship because of your outstanding elite athletes. But you guys have to work hard because, other programs have really, really good teams as well. 3 years ago, you played a very, very close state championship game against Lee County, won that one when it came down to the wire. A couple years ago, you won another close state championship game against Langston Hughes. Last year, you had a hiccup in the second round against a pretty good Walton team that lost by 3 to the eventual state champs, Mill Creek. Talk about how hard even though you've got an elite program, how hard your kids still have to work to get things done on the field.
Yeah, as stuff that goes on in the school building, on the practice field, for a long time around here, and like I said, I've been going on 21 years now. A lot of people just don't believe we do it. I mean, I hate to say, a lot of people just think, like you said, it's a given. No, you guys will be fine, And I say, hey man, we're struggling here. We're young. Like last year, we were young, like young, and younger than I've ever been. I mean, we were pretty young my first year, but I still think the youth that we had playing on the field was a lot of it was new. A lot of it was juniors and sophomores versus having a bunch of seniors out there. And those kids had to work. They had to work in the classroom as far as meetings with coaches, and they had to work to grow their body and work as a team. And like you said, there's no slouch in 7A football, really, from the first round on. Like when we was back in AA, AAA, you go through maybe 2 rounds if you was in the right bracket, and before it'd be quarterfinals before you hit somebody that could even punch back. And that usually sometimes was the best game of this. Like you get past quarterfinal, you kind of had an easier road in the semifinals, and obviously state championships hard. But 7A, it starts earlier. Yeah. It's usually first round is always an upset, and second round is definitely an upset. So I think that was a good wake up call for us last year. Just kids just lulling through certain weeks, and you had the Thompson game early last week. Last year you had the Mill Creek game, and those were like high profile games that kids can point to on the schedule and say we got to be ready for that night. And it's a rude awakening when you got to go up against 4 top notch opponents to have a chance to win the state championship game in 7A. But it's a good thing. You know what I mean? Waking guys up and make sure they understand how hard you got to work to have a chance in this league and in this state to do something special like that down the stretch. And I think our kids understand that fact now. I hate to say that you have to suffer loss, but sometimes you do. To get through those and come back a different animal. And I think our kids have done a great job this offseason of having that in the front of their mindset when they go to work and do those, behind closed doors in the gym. We're doing mat drills and we're doing little things like that. But our kids understand that. And I've gone back and forth. I always say, y'all need some rest. Y'all need to train. Kids train so hard nowadays, and that's kids inside and outside our program. Our kids don't rest. I can sit here and tell them, take a night off. If I give them a day off, in afternoon off in the summer or in the fall and spring, they're going to go find something to do together, whether they're working in the sand pit or they're going to go find somebody to train with that they trust. So our kids do understand the level of work that it takes and the level of preparation. It's my job to point them in the right direction and hold them accountable in that process and hopefully put a great product out on the field every Friday night. But the work is hard and they meet the standards on that each and every day.
Hey, Coach, let's talk personnel. I went through and I made a list of, according to Rivals and 247, like the top 10 starred players on your roster. 7 of them are on the defensive side of the ball. So let's talk about your seniors. You got KJ Bolden, Edric Houston, Tyson White, Kobe Blackwell, Martrice Dillard. Talk about some of those. Some of us who haven't seen them or noticed them on film yet or playing against some of the great teams last year. What can we expect to see against St. Francis with these guys?
Right now it starts, like I said, with our seniors. We have a larger senior class compared to what we had last year, which is always beneficial. You got more experience out there. But it starts, with those first two guys you said, KJ Bowden and Edric Houston. And I even throw Bryson Banks in that category. He just committed James Madison 2 days ago, and Ty White. All of those guys play both sides of the ball. They're heavily recruited defensive players. KJ can play either side. He's definitely an athlete. But as good of players as those guys are, they're better leaders. And that's everything. I put some pressure on them this morning in the summer workout, and they stepped up and they opened their mouths, and they didn't want to do any more up downs and burpees, so they figured out a way to get everybody moving in the right direction. But those guys are gym rats, like I say. They ask questions. They want to make sure they know. They don't just want to know what they do. They want to know what everybody else is doing as well, so they can be better football players and help them out if there's a young guy out there beside them. But those four guys I just said, Kobe and Jalen Neal did a good job last year, defensive backfield. MJ came to us. They moved in the district as a sophomore late. He battled some things last year. He didn't have a whole lot of film out there, but we're excited about what he's going to look like coming up this next year playing on the D-line for us.
Nice.
And the good thing about it, a lot of those, I just said a bunch of names right there. There are a bunch of names that played some snaps last year. They're going to be rising juniors and rising sophomores as well. Yeah. I got a bunch of kids right now I'm definitely excited about on the defense side of the ball, and I get them for another year after this. With Provided, Kenyon Rivera. I coach outside backers myself, so those are the guys that I coach each and every practice. Mantrez Walker, you know what I mean?
Jaden, Devin, Braden, Jake, Braden on the offensive side of the ball, Justin running the ball. A lot of great juniors. You have five 4-star juniors, Larry.
Yes, yeah, and they're following the lead really well of those older guys too. So it's a good group right now.
Joe, let me follow up on the question you just asked, Coach. I was reading, just part of the show prep. I was reading an article on Gwinnett Prep Sports. That was a talented writer up there, a guy named Wesley Branch. He wrote an article about you guys just a few weeks ago. He said, this is a quote from me. He says, "The Wolves, who made the jump to Class 7A before the 2022 season, after a dominant reign in both 5A and 6A, went 11-1 last year and won Region 8 7A title. Many of the key players are back from that team, along with some promising newcomers." So I'll just stop it right there. I think you did a good job of talking about some of these key players that are returning, expecting to be big contributors. As a football fan in the state of Georgia, who should we be looking for that are maybe rising sophomore, maybe a freshman or two, some key newcomers, names that we don't recognize yet, that's going to make a big impact on your program for the next several years?
I said one a second ago, playing outside linebacker Kenyon Rivera. He's a big-bodied kid. He's kind of like a tweener, jack, edge. Like could play. He's a bigger body guy, but he can run. So he's playing outside linebacker for us, a jack position for us. He's been in Buford all his life. He had an injury last summer that lingered into the year, and he didn't get cleared completely until toward the end, right around basketball season. He played basketball as well last year, but he's got a chance to be special this year and play a bunch of good snaps for us on the defense side of the ball. Two rising sophomores is Bryce Perry Wright and James Morrow. They rotate up front with MJ and Edric and another senior, Caleb Teller. We got a bunch of guys that we run it like a college football team. We want as many guys repping up front because big guys get tired and we don't want anybody tired on any given snap. So we rotate those guys a lot so they all get a chance to play a bunch of snaps every Friday night. But those who are as a special young, defensive end, edge guys that I've seen since Edric coming through. So they're built that cloth, and I expect them to do great things for us this year up front there. Preston Clark and, like you said, Braden Jacobs a second ago. Everybody knows who Braden is. Preston Clark's a young, rising sophomore O-lineman that's going to help us out and is fighting for the start this year. But he was he's a clear-cut backup as a freshman last year, but he's grown and he's communicating really well up front, doing what he's supposed to do on that side of the ball. See Nasir McCoy, Rashawn Isaac. I'm trying to think of my rising sophomores right now. I've got about, 6 or 7 rising sophomores now that are fighting either to start or to play a lot. And those are guys that have popped up on some recruiting sites and things like that. But I got a bunch of them that I'm proud of right now. They're hungry, and that's a good thing. They don't care how old they are. They're 15 years old going against 18-year-olds, and they're trying as hard as they can to gain the strength and the knowledge they need to be an effective football player on a Friday.
Hey, Coach, how often does a true freshman get to play varsity at Buford? Is it rare?
It is rare. We kind of, as we have evolved and moved up and up in classifications, we understand the importance of having depth and numbers. And we get really, really good players come out of GFL and they play 6th, 7th, 8th grade in Buford. And you watch them like, this kid's going to be great. And in their mind or their parents' mind, sometimes they're like, he needs to play varsity as a freshman. And I always tell them when they're like that, hey, man, my goal is to get you to play a certain amount of snaps, if you're good enough and if you're tough enough. But I understand, hopefully playing 15 games as a varsity kid is a lot different than playing 9, 10 games as a GFL kid playing against 13-year-old bodies, and now you're 14 playing against 18-year-old bodies that are about to go to college. Yeah. So we do a great job as far as say like Bryce Perry Wright last year. He's probably one of the freshmen that played a bunch the whole season. But, talking to him and his dad's great. He's like, Coach, we want to play. We want to do this. But, Coach, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust the process. And I was like, big deal is my goal for you the first game is 5 snaps. 5 of the best snaps you can have if you're a varsity football player as a freshman. And then, 3 weeks from now, it's 10. And hopefully by the time we get to playoffs, and if you're that good and if you're rotating with us, it's 15 to 20 snaps. But I don't want you out there for 50 snaps, 15 games as a freshman. At some point, your body's going to break down. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it happen. And it's some kids, some programs can do that and figure it out because they're not playing the caliber of teams that, Joe is setting us up to play early in the season. So they understand that, you got to go through the process and do it the right way. And my goal is if you're that good, I want you playing game 14, 15. I don't want you playing all the way to game 6 and tweaking something and you're out the rest of the season. So it is rare. We've had more and more as we moved up just because we need those numbers as far as young guys playing. But it's hard to get there. And if a kid is playing, they've done everything the right way. They learned the defense or offense. They busted their tail that summer. And they're great kids because I don't play kids if they're turds and they're just going to do what they want to do and think they can rule the school and just because they're a football player.
Coach, let me ask you something that is high school football related. It's going to come front and center this year, but it's not. But teams across the country don't have to face it yet, and that's instant replay at the high school level. So I believe starting this fall, we're going to have it not for every game, but in the state championship game. And let's be honest, it's safe to assume that Buford's going to be a favorite this year. Okay, because you got a lot of returning players. So assuming that you make it to the state championship game. That's going to be a new wrinkle in your game plan. Have you had a chance to sit down and think about how instant replay would affect your game planning?
Oh, it definitely is a wrinkle that you have to know the ins and outs of. I've seen some crazy things over the years. Not to call out anybody because I love and respect every referee group that we deal with. We're Atlanta Area Officials Association, yeah, and Patrick Ingram and those guys, they do a great job. But obviously it's a situation where, if a coach on the sideline or a coach, up top or somebody has seen and they believe something, you got to be willing to throw their flag out there and challenge something. Any coach, high school coach, college coach, we're so ate up with ball. We've seen so many situations in the NFL and college and things like that. The only thing I haven't done is really reach out to coaches that I trust at the college level that have dealt with it, just to ask them questions. That's probably going to be on my July agenda because those guys aren't camping as much in July and they're just shut it down so I can get, a guy on the phone at UGA or somewhere that I know where I trust guys and they can answer some questions for me. But yeah, it's something that, you know, it's popped up on my radar because I'm reading the rules every off season trying to figure out what's different. But I'm gonna watch, you know, early as I can. Now I think does Texas use instant replay already? I believe. I know I thought somebody has in the state championship games, I believe. So maybe research some of those games and see which calls went left or right and what happened, just so I have a game plan as far as if we have a chance to do that this year.
Coach, I want to end my segment by saying, you know, last year we spoke to a coach similar to yourself, one of the top public schools in America, Jube Joseph from Miami Central.
Mm-hmm.
And he set up his formula was he was going to play the best out-of-state team he could play. He went to IMG and beat IMG.
Mm-hmm.
And then he won his state, went undefeated in the state of Florida. And he was our national champion last year. You have that opportunity. You beat St. Francis at your place and you win Georgia. I'm telling you right now, you're going to end up the top 5 in America, if not number 1. A lot of things can happen. You got Mater Dei and St. John Bosco play each other twice. If they split, if Gorman, you know, loses to Miami Central, there's a lot that could happen. Where if you go undefeated and with that St. Francis home victory, you're going to be right there. So I love what you're doing at the school. I love your competitive nature when it comes to out-of-state scheduling. I wish more coaches in Georgia would be like you, hint, South Georgia. But you know, you're going to reap the benefits. You have so far in the last 4 years. You play the best. You'll play anybody, anywhere, and you love to challenge your team. So I appreciate what you do. Like I said early on, you're always going to be special to our company. Because you allowed us to hold our first event ever there with Grayson, Bergen Catholic, and Deerfield Beach. And I'm rooting for you the whole way, and wish you the best of luck in 2023 and beyond.
Listen, Joe, not so fast, Coach. I got to end this on a question for you. Listen to this. All right, so Coach, you've been at the helm of Buford for a number of years. This is going on your 5th season. You've won 3 state championships. Let's assume for a second you win the state championship this year. What's next for Bryant Appling? Is it the college ranks? Are you perfectly content to be the head coach of the Buford Wolves? You don't have to answer the question. I know there's Buford fans going to be watching this. But what's next for Bryant Appling?
Because honestly, what's next after this season, win, lose, or draw, would be probably at that point getting my life together back in this house. I'm not really worried about it. Just like what Joe just said, I can't worry about 3 months ahead or 2 months ahead or whatever. I'm worried about our kids showing up and having a great practice tomorrow, great summer session. But honestly, I went back and forth when I was a young coach. I always wish I would have GA'd, right up to college, because I had a chance to do it at Lehigh University when I finished graduating. I went to the business world and realized really fast business world wasn't for me. I needed to be around sports. So I wish I would have GA'd, but I think even if I would have GA'd, I probably would have gravitated more toward the high school game, just because I get to be home with my kids. I got 3. I got a 13-year-old daughter going in the 8th grade. 11-year-old boy going into the 6th grade and a 9-year-old going into the 4th grade next year. And the fact that I get to coach, check this out. All right, here you go. My daughter's traveling softball right now. We were just in Auburn this past weekend for a 2-day tournament in Valdosta a couple weeks ago. So she's full speed ahead with travel softball. I coached my middle boy 7-on-7 team this last year, and I coached my youngest boy soccer team this past year. I don't get to do that if I'm
no way.
Director of player personnel or position coach or whatever at the college level. And I can't see myself. My wife's kind of funny. She's from the Bay Area, doesn't know a whole lot about ball. She didn't grow up, in a sports family. They're more of a military family. But she lived there her whole life, and she's asking me, like, when we first get together, like our 15th anniversary is in a couple days, about a week and a half or so. She asked me, like, I think our second year marriage, hey, you ever thought about college coach? All right, honey, let me take you through a full 365 days of a college coach and what they do. And it wasn't far in that conversation. Like, yeah, I think we're in the right spot, and this is what we want to do. So unless something crazy changes, I'm content. Not content. I'm happy and blessed to be the coach in Buford, Georgia, and I'm gonna be hell bent on every day making this the greatest program in America. And that's my goal.
Hey, Coach, I have a great trip for you next year. Let's have your wife do a homecoming, and I'll send you out to the San Francisco area to play a great De La Salle team. How's that?
Because I'm all about it. I actually got a conversation tomorrow with my superintendent because they say they didn't let us after COVID and a couple of years after COVID do any traveling. They said next year we can travel, so I'm bringing it up early, and we're trying to get out of state and play somebody really good.
Good. I want to get in on your wife's good side and taking her back to the Bay Area and having you play a great team like a De La Salle or somebody like that. I'm all for it. Let's do it.
You be her favorite person, I promise you.
Love it.
Last thing I'll say, Coach, is why in the world do you want to fly all the way out to California when you just jump on a bus and come down to Valdosta and play Lowndes?
The problem is, as of right now, unless something changes, I mean, you saw the early predictions of regions, so I still have to have 4 games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm fighting hard to get, a local game because I keep it real. Our Mill Creek game last year was the best atmosphere I've ever been a part of in high school football. I mean, no question. So the fact that we're playing bigger Gwinnett schools now in region, if I can schedule just one of those games with a North Gwinnett, a Parkview, a Norcross, the atmosphere would be unbelievable. So I'm banking hopefully on 1 or 2 of those. One really good team in the Southeast, hopefully like a South Georgia team that possibly if you got to go on the road in the playoffs, you already got experience doing that, getting on the bus, and then hopefully 1, if not 2, if we have to sometimes, a national program coming to play us and us going to play them. So there's room on the schedule, I promise you, man.
Absolutely. Let's put him in touch with Adam Carter, Joe.
We'll do. All right.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Guys, if you have enjoyed this conversation, check out the conversation that you can be having with other like-minded fans all across the country at www.nationalhsfb.com. So on behalf of Joe Mamone, I'm Larry Godwin. Thank you, Coach Appling, for joining us tonight on National High School Football.
Sounds great. I appreciate you guys. You guys are top notch. Y'all do it the right way. Anytime you need anything from me, just let me know.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks so much.